Hello and welcome to Inside Iraq. I'm Jassim Azzawi. The latest U.S. accusations against Iran are damning and direct. Iran is using its proxy Hezbollah to train Iraqi militias in the art of killing American and Iraqi troops. We have captured a Hezbollah operative and have the evidence to show that Iran's top leadership is involved, the U.S. claimed. So why is the U.S. not hitting back? In the U.S.-Iran confrontation to dominate the Gulf, is Washington being naive in expecting a different treatment from a cocky member of the axis of evil? Nadeem Baba reports.
How extensive are the Hezbollah activities inside Iraq?
The latest U.S. claim of Iranian involvement in Iraq came with a new twist. The accusation that Tehran is using Lebanese experts to train Iraq's Shia militias.
We think that it's best described as this Hezbollah operative, specifically that we captured, Daqduq, being used as a proxy.
I think these accusations about Hezbollah's involvement in Iraq are a bit far-fetched. Right now, it's focusing on remobilizing, organizing its military capabilities in the south in preparation for a possible Israeli attack on Lebanon.
Ali Musa Daqduq was captured in southern Iraq in March. U.S. officials say he's admitted providing a link between the Quds Force, unofficially part of Iran's Revolutionary Guard, and breakaway cells of Iraq's Mahdi Army militia.
Nothing that the Quds Force and the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, the Pasdaran, nothing that they do is done without authorization from the top leadership in Tehran. And I think that means that clearly these are activities that they know about and that they approve of.
And now, for the first time on record, the US is saying that the Quds Force helped orchestrate an attack in the city of Karbala in January, an attack that shocked the military.
English-speaking gunmen disguised as American troops entered the governor's compound, killing one US soldier and abducting 4 others who were later found shot dead. Since then, the US has produced what it calls proof that Iran's providing weapons for anti-US attacks over the border.
The problem with that strategy is there can be what's called blowback. It can come back as you promote and foment violence. You don't really know where that's going to go. It could blow back on Iran in terms of internal opposition. It could spread in other countries. It could be very destabilizing for the region. So it's a strategy, but sometimes it's not the smartest strategy in the world.
Iran's foreign minister recently told Al Jazeera that Washington was trying to divert attention from the failure of its troop surge.
I think this kind of allegations, which repeatedly is saying by the American side, will not help them to solve the problem.
In May, Washington and Tehran held their highest-level meeting for almost 30 years in Baghdad. The latest accusations could be seen as brinkmanship ahead of more possible talks, or as a sign they're already doomed to failure. Nadeem Baba for Inside Iraq.
To understand why Iran is using Hezbollah and the risk involved for Tehran, I am joined from Washington by Lawrence Korb from the Center for American Progress. From London by intelligence analyst Glenmore Terrenier Harvey, and from Beirut, Lebanon by author and political analyst Dr. Kamel Wazni. Gentlemen, welcome to Inside Iraq. Mr. Korb, let me start with you. Why would Hezbollah risk the ire of the United States? Were you surprised by the revelation?
No, I'm not. I mean, because Hezbollah depends upon Iran for a lot of support, and basically by doing this, I think they're currying favor with the group that they think will be the eventual guarantor of their success.
Hezbollah would be spreading itself thin if it will venture into the Iraqi domain.
Not necessarily. If they're engaged in training of cadres in Iran, you don't need a large number of specialists to do that. And it's of no surprise at all, given the association, the support that Iran has given Hezbollah in the past.
Hezbollah has enough enemies, Dr. Kamel Wazni. It does not necessarily need another one, that is the United States. So from your perspective, from the vantage point of Lebanon, why did Hezbollah get into it?
Well, in the first place, it's known that the United States does not like Hezbollah and always fought Hezbollah in many fronts. And in the latest fight, they supported the Israeli to bomb all the area that was controlled by Hezbollah. On the other hand, this is sort of accusation that we don't hear from for the first time. This rumor's been going on for 2 years that Hezbollah is involved in Iraq. I think the Iraqi have and had enough training from previous training expertise, and there's going on some operation against occupation.
Mr. Harvey, Dr. Kamel Wazni is right in one thing. So far, it was in the realm of conjecture and perhaps just innuendos. But for the first time, the Americans, they captured a senior operative in March in Iraq. So does that tell you anything as an analyst?
Well, certainly, you know, he is well skilled in terrorist activity. And specifically, what Hezbollah have shown in the recent battle in Lebanon, one of the things that they are particularly skilled in using are these EFPs, the explosively formed projectiles. And it is this, the advance on the IEDs, that have been causing havoc amongst the coalition troops in Iraq. So his presence there, to me, just confirms that association. But I do have a real concern, and that is both the American forces there and the British too in Basra have been talking about Iranian involvement and the latest involvement of Hezbollah, but the actual evidence has been pretty thin on the ground. Circumstantially, I can believe it, but there has been a failure ever since the February press conference to produce the materials that were captured in Erbil, for example. And this worries me because we don't have the sort of intelligence justification or even the hardware itself. Robert Gates, if you recall, said, well, we've got dated materials from 2006. Well, yes, they might be dated, but how do you directly link that with Iran?
Add to that, Mr. Korb, that this is a solitary operative, senior as he may be, but it is a solitary one. Are you surprised by that this is just a one person and no other Hezbollah officers have been captured?
No, I'm not surprised, because I think what the United States is trying to do now is basically blame their failures on the fact that Iran has been involved. And the feeling is, well, if it wasn't for the Iranians, we would have the situation in Iraq under control. So anything that seems to indicate whether Iran has been involved, they're going to go forward with it without, making sure that all of the evidence really tracks. It reminds me an awful lot of the way we got into this war, when people took little bits of information and then concluded that Iraq was a major threat to international peace and in general, and the United States in particular. And it's just like they've also changed now. We don't talk much about a civil war in the United States. Basically, everything now is Al-Qaeda. So it's Al-Qaeda and Iran that we seem to be fighting, rather than dealing with, which for the most part in Iraq is a civil war.
If that is the case, Kamel Wazni, perhaps that's the reason why Hezbollah does not want to talk about it, because they don't see much value in rebutting the American accusation.
Obviously, Hezbollah read the American politics very well, and he knows that the Bush administration facing a deadline as of September. He lost the support of the Republican Party after he lost the support of the Democrat, and after he lost the support of the American people, and they're looking for a scapegoat, and they know Hezbollah, they always can characterize it as a terrorist group, and that's very easy to say that without having any evidence. My colleague, on the other hand, he was talking about that Hezbollah is a terrorist group. What Hezbollah did, defend the Lebanese territory against Israeli aggression against Lebanon. That's called a terrorist. Then I'm sorry, your democracy that you learn in the United States you need to be reoriented. Because I was in Lebanon, I see that Israel dropped those cluster bomb against children and women and innocent people. What we see now, we see that Bush administration, the Republican Party, in a problem, and they wanted to assign a blame, and they going that direction. Do you think that one person is making all this havoc in Iraq? I mean, get a grip on it. This is nonsense.
Mr. Korb?
Well, I think that's a good point. I mean, the fact of the matter is that Iran is involved somewhat and Al-Qaeda is involved somewhat, but that's not the main problem. And I think my other colleagues make a good point. The fact of the matter is that the United States did not have the right reasons for going in, never sent enough troops in there, and has changed its strategy several times and is looking for scapegoats. Even if you did not have Hezbollah or Iran involved, you still would have a problem in Iraq. And I think that's the key thing. Whether in fact this turns out to be true, I don't think is the critical thing. I think the critical thing is that the United States has got itself involved in a situation in which it has no way out. And as you know, my colleague just said, the fact of the matter is they're even losing support among Republicans. And it's not just September, because July 15th, the General Petraeus and Ambassador Crocker have to put out a report, and there's no way in which that report is going to say that the surge is working, in the sense that violence is down, the Iraqi government has made all of the political compromises.
Larry Korb, thank you very much. We'll take a short break now. When we come back, we will ask whether the latest U.S. accusations are linked to a fresh set of sanctions against Iran. Stay with us.
The arrest has a limited shelf life that has already expired, but the arrest is probably more valuable to the US in the political sense. Magnus Ranstorp, National Defense College in Stockholm.